name is Hamida Han. I'm one of the co-presidents of SEPTA. Welcome to our 6th annual college fair. Hooray! First, we'd like to thank Mary Fox, Dawn Bartz, Greg Fondy, Cheryl Thomas for all their amazing support. And next, we'd like to give a huge thank you to the JCCA for their most generous donation to sponsor this great event. Thank you so much for coming.
Hi everybody, I'm Tara Klein. I am one of the founders of the Pleasantville SEPTA and also the Community Partnerships and Social Media Chair. So if you've got an email or a tweet or a Facebook post, it's probably been me. But I started this college fair 6 years ago, and it's my honor this year to moderate the panel. And this idea actually came from Scott Gabberini at the end from Thames Academy, Mitchell College. Mitchell has been represented every year. Have you been here, everyone?
I've been with it for 4 years, but Sean was before me, so we get there every month.
Okay. And last year, after our college fair, which was about assistive technology, and if you didn't see those presentations, they're still available on the website. But after the college fair, Scott sent me an email and really had this great idea for talking about gap year programs, which was something that we had never considered before. But if you know anything about the Pleasantville SEPTA, we're kind of an unconventional organization. We define special needs in a much broader way than a lot of other special education PTAs do. And I think you'll see by the programs that are represented downstairs that there's really soup to nuts down there. And hopefully, after this event, you'll be able to go downstairs and really meet some program representatives that have a very unique view of what post-secondary options are for our students. So I think that's something that all of us are interested in exploring. But in terms of the panel tonight, we have a really amazing cross-section of professionals with amazing experience. So what I'm going to do is introduce them, give them all an opportunity to just tell us a little bit about themselves for a few minutes, and then we have only a few questions that we'll ask each of them to answer, and then we'll open it up to the audience for Q&A. So in no particular order, because I'm doing 60 homes. So I'm going to start with Patricia Rowan, who is a licensed clinical social worker in Westchester. And Pat comes to us with a huge range of experience in the community and is a great resource for parents who are really looking to be connected to people in programs that may not be easy to tease out. We also have Holly Wolf, who is the president of the Center for Interim Programs. Holly was here, I think, for the first time last year. No? I'm not sure.
I wasn't here last year.
Okay, you weren't here. But they're new to us, so we're interested to learn more about them. Kathy Chang is here from Donahue Gap Programs, and we're really excited to have her here to talk about the options that are available for them. Christina, and I'm not going to say your last name right, so I'm not even going to try. Christina is an educational consultant and a co-author of the book, Life After High School, a guide for students with disabilities and their families. There's some information, if you didn't get one of the red brochures when you came in, please get one of them. There's information on almost all of the programs represented here, but there's also information about Christina's book. And it's also for sale downstairs. The Pleasantville bookstore is here selling not only Christina's book, okay, but also several other titles that are either specific to gap year or just in terms of options for post-secondary education programs in general. And then Scott is here. Scott is the Assistant Director of Admissions at the Thames Academy at Mitchell College. So why don't we start here in the end. So can you just tell us a little bit about the program and kind of what you do? Just overview. Okay. Just let you 3 minutes a little bit about the program.
Can you all hear me all right?
Yeah.
Okay. So yes, I'm Holly Wolf, and I'm president of the Center for Interim Programs, which is an independent gap year counseling organization that started in 1980. And we're definitely the oldest of our kind doing this this work. And I'm speaking from from a double bias here because I did my own 2 gap years, one before college, one after my sophomore year in college. And I've been on the counseling end of this work. All I do is gap year counseling for the past 21 years now. So as I said, I'm very biased in favor of taking this kind of time. It's just a marvelous opportunity for anybody who is interested, and actually for all ages. Mostly the people who take gap time are students between high school and college, or some who are stepping away from college. And I think, as a counselor, from my own experience with my gap year, probably the most powerful aspect of this is that you're giving somebody at 17, 18 a chance to really choose what they want to do, within certain parameters in the safety structure. And that's huge because we're all put in school at 5 or 6, and nobody asks us if we want to go to kindergarten or first grade. So we have to go through this process, and we're expected to go to college. And the gap year really offers people a chance to step back and say, who am I? What am I interested in? Let me go and explore some of these interests hands-on. And ideally, they're choosing things that they want to do, so they own the process. And we tend to infantilize our teenagers in this culture. They can take on way more than we give them credit for, and they really want to. My own gap year, especially the first one, was particularly helpful on a practical level because what I did was explore the field of marine biology, thinking maybe I'm going to be a marine biologist in college and major in this field. And I spent about 3.5, 4 months on Oahu in Hawaii scrubbing out shrimp tanks and chatting with scientists and getting a sense of the daily do of the work. And after about a month or so, I thought, nah, I don't have patience for this, and this is probably not something I should pursue. But it was really helpful to know that, and it's not the kind of information you can often get from a class. So there is this practical level of, is this something I want to pursue or not? And also building a resume, because all of the things that you do during gap time are skills that you're accruing that go on to a resume.
Hi, I'm Kathy Chang. I'm the Director of Admission for DIME Internship here. DIME is an internship gap year program. And what does that mean? It means that students are taking a break from the traditional classroom to actually get some real-world hands-on experience. We offer over 240 internship options, everything from working in radio, to TV, to culinary, to nonprofits, business, psychology. As you can see, there's quite a range that can go on. But really, part of our program is really personalized for the student. Holly shared a great story about going out there and seeing if she actually wants to work in marine biology. That's also what our students are doing. You might think you want to go into culinary, and then you realize, I hate working in the kitchen, it's just too hot for me. Well, clearly that's a great way to find out, okay, what is the next step? But it's also a great way for students that are feeling a little burnt out by traditional education, just to pursue education in a very different way, as well as build that resume. So DIME is that combination of internships. We offer college credit, which is optional, and we're partnering with Clark University. We also, it's apartment living. So taking that next step out, actually living in apartments, living with DIME roommates. We also have a part-time college counselor. So there's a lot of great pieces to it. But the year is really formed around the student, and the primary piece to it is really advising. So having a one-on-one advisor you can work with and really kind of talk through the year of, what do I want to do? What am I looking for? And figuring out who you are as an individual. So that's a little bit on DIME. Christina, you wrote the book.
Hi, my name is, can you hear me? Yeah. My name is Christina Casio-Birch, and it's a pleasure for me to be here. I work as a college advisor and educational consultant, and I started this company, it's called CCB, Educational Consulting Corp, 7 years ago. To give you a little bit of background, I taught at Regis High School in Manhattan, and I was a part-time administrator there, and then I worked at Fordham University as the Director of Disability Services. So I was the person who worked with the high school students, or I should say the college students coming right out of high school, and I was the liaison between the student and the professor and helped get them their accommodations. Especially after my work at Fordham, I saw that students didn't realize what their disability services or what their disability rights were and were not, and they didn't realize what kind of support is available at different colleges. So for some students, Fordham had a perfect amount of support for them. For other students, it didn't have enough. So when I resigned from Fordham, I decided I was going to work on my own and get the information out to families during middle school years, high school years, so that when it came time to pick a college, or whatever placement that was after high school, that they would have the information that they needed to really make an informed decision about what would be the best fit for their child. On a personal note, my youngest sister was diagnosed with a learning disability and attention deficit disorder when she was in first grade. So seeing her go through, and this is 20 plus years ago, go through really the struggles of having a disability, and when it was time to go to college, the advice that she and my parents had gotten was, you're a gifted lacrosse player. Go to X college, we know the admissions director there and the lacrosse coach there, you'll do great. Unfortunately, there was no conversation about what kind of support she needed. And needless to say, after a semester, she was put on academic probation, and after 2 years, she was asked to leave. So that's the personal reason why I do what I do. I don't want that to happen to you as a student or to your child as a parent. 2 years ago, I co-authored a book that Tara mentioned, and this was really, the goal of it was to provide a resource for families and students, and to make it really readable. We use a lot of case studies in the book, students that I worked with and my co-author worked with, and blended their stories to really give a real life, many real life situations about how to deal with college, how to get accommodations in college, etc. I work privately with students, one-on-one, and I recommend colleges to them based on their disability needs and their support needs. I evaluate disability documentation to make sure they have what they need so that when they get to college, they can get accommodations and they'll be eligible for them. I do interview prep for college support programs and for colleges. I help with admissions, essays, and with applications. Oh, and also, I was just on the phone with these two ladies or someone from their office this fall regarding a particular student I'm working with, because maybe college is not the right spot for them. So we were talking about gap year programs. I personally did a gap year program. It was for after college, so between college and the real world. And it was an unbelievable experience for me, who I think that I would probably assess myself as someone that was mature to begin with, but unbelievable growing experience that I still reflect upon and say I learned so much from that year. So I'm really looking forward to speaking with you all tonight, afterwards, and I'll be downstairs. And thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Pat Roman, and I want to thank you, Tara, and Laura Sloan also for inviting me to be on this panel. It's an honor. And also thanks to all of you for forfeiting your debates tonight, those provocative and exciting debates. Hope you're not missing too much. Thank you for coming.
Source of matter,
Anyway, for the past 20 plus years, I've been working with children, teens, and young adults on the autism spectrum, PDD. Oh, yeah.
Here.
You know what, this may be a better one for me, actually.
Thanks.
Oh, I'm sorry, everything needs. Okay. Oh, this is good. Okay. For the past 20 plus years, I've been working with children, teens, and young adults on the autism spectrum, kids diagnosed with PDD and OS, nonverbal learning disorders, social anxiety, and many syndrome based coexist with neural and biological disorders. I became interested in working with students with social and communication challenges while working with quote-unquote speech and language impaired students in a special ed school in New Rochelle, K through 12. It didn't take me long to understand that these students that I was working with were far more complex than just being impaired. They were autistic. It became apparent that a different model of teaching and behavioral management was needed. I approached administration about training at the University of North Carolina in the TEACH model, which was a nationally recognized model at the time. They agreed to allow me to develop and direct an interdisciplinary structured teaching team utilizing basically classroom structure, visual schedules, and predictable routines for the students on the spectrum, while also coordinating the efforts of the support staff and the teachers toward educational and treatment goals. After 7 years, I went into private practice with a focus on the niche area of kids with social and communication deficits. I started Kids Connection, an after-school social skills program for middle schoolers and teens. As demands for these groups have grown, we've added 3 social workers to our current staff. While working with these kids in group, many of whom have had social and behavioral challenges, I became involved with advocacy, attending IEP meetings, and transition planning meetings to ensure the goals and objectives of the students were appropriate and were being adequately addressed. My focus on young adults sort of came from working with the middle schoolers and the teens. Eventually they grow up, and I wound up keeping these kids for a long, long time. And I started to see the challenges of transitioning to appropriate programming for students of this age. After speaking to parents, I was invited to come to a parent support meeting down at the Westchester ALC. And after the meeting, a group of parents came up to me and told me of their plight, that they had students at home that had failed out of school, had taken incompletes, didn't get into college, couldn't get jobs, and were basically wallowing at home doing nothing. So in response to this parent input, myself and colleague Sue Cordelia-Jones started the Opening Doors at Westchester, and we hold it at Westchester ARC. This is an educational, life skills, and social group for young adults. Many of these adults still interview their SEPTA graduation from high school, either struggling in college, dropping out, unable to get jobs, losing jobs, staying at home, unable to pick up the pieces of their lives, and basically depressed. So what was really going on here? Well, what I understood was that graduating from high school and going to college meant leaving behind a more structured environment, going to one of the vast amounts of discretionary time that they really didn't know how to manage. For many of our students, going to college means a loss of the organizational assistance and social supports and help with the life tasks that you parents so willingly provide. Many of the transcription plans written in college are inadequate. They're not comprehensive or realistic enough, particularly around the critical life tasks that can make or break a successful college experience. In college, for the first time, students need to adjust to a new physical and social environment. They have to take charge of their health and hygiene, manage their time, and make their own decisions.
Pat, I don't mean to cut you off.
It's too long. I know, I can see that.
I think a lot of what you want to talk about, we're going to cover in the Q&A, so I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. But I'm sure we'll get all of that, and if there's a word that people want to connect with you about, because I think you are an amazing resource. You'll be downstairs.
Okay, absolutely. Sorry for that.
No,
Terrible.
please don't apologize.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Pat. Scott, tell us a little bit about Things Academy for Children.
All right, can you guys hear me without the microphone?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, I'm not a microphone person. I'm also not being rude, but speaking of assistive technology, I use my iPhone for notes for everything because I just speak to it while I'm driving down here and sitting in traffic on 95. So I'm reading my notes as we go down. Just to give you a little bit about myself, graduated eons ago from high school and went to a high school. When I graduated, I was one of 2,000 kids in my senior class. Out in California, a very large school, graduated over 2 days, A through G, 1 day, H through Z through the second. Literally did this. Walked into my guidance counselor about, I don't know, 3 days before graduation and said, I'm going to Harvard. And she was like, wow, I haven't even seen you come through my office. And I was like, I haven't, I'm here, let's get this process started. And she said, okay, what have you done? And I said, I'm here, I'm visiting you. She said, I haven't seen you in 4 years. I said, well, okay, but now you're my college advisor, let's get me into Harvard, that's where I want to go. Had no clue what that even meant. Not even the admissions process, not the years of work I had to put into that before I got to this point, and really just didn't know what to do. I was told you're going to college, that's what your sister did, you need to go, or you're going to work on the farm with your dad. And I said, no, I'm not. So I went to a college. I went to Cuesta Community College, which was in San Luis Obispo, and it was sort of the back door into Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, where I was going to major in ag business marketing. I was going to run my dad's farm. Don't ask. I went there and realized, and the reason I'm telling you guys this is I did my own gap year. I went there and spent a year of my parents' money, enrolled in a college, and not going to any of the classes because after the first day, I realized when the instructor said, you can show up again on the midterm and you can show up again the day of the final, and as long as you take the exams and pass them, you'll pass my class. I'm doing my dissertation research. Have a great year. I grabbed my stuff and I was out the door and I said, I'll be back at the midterm. What I didn't know was there was some organizing, some time management, some homework that had to be done during that time. I never did that. So I got my first transcript that had all Fs. And still ditto-copied back then, so fortunately I learned how to smudge those, turn them into A's, gave them to my dad, which he did not believe from the very minute that he saw them. So what I did is I sat down and I did some real in-depth thinking about, okay, what am I good at? And again, my parents are not educated, my sister went to college, but it always came easy to her. She can read a book, not see it again for a week, and give you an entire 9-page essay on the thing, and it's in just beautiful, eloquently written, and I'm sitting there thinking, I don't like you at all. So I did some real hard self-assessment, and I figured there's 2 things I wanted to do in life. 3 things really I wanted to do in life. Talk, travel, and get away from my parents. And that was nothing against you guys or my specific parents. It was just, I knew that I was being coddled, living at home. Dad would tell me to go out and use a shovel. Mom would say, here's 20 bucks, go downtown with your friends. So I was getting these mixed feelings, and I can look back and say that now. So I ended up picking a school in Providence, Rhode Island. Don't want to mention any names because I work for a different school, but one of the country's largest culinary schools in Providence, Rhode Island. And I went there for 4 years and got a degree in culinary nutrition. So my undergrad is, I'm a chef dietitian. Realized through that process, I worked for some years. They offered me a job back on campus working within career development and working with students who were getting ready to go out and be successful and, okay, now how do you write that resume and so forth. Through all of that, hating teachers and not getting along because they didn't teach to the way that I learned, I decided I'm going to get my master's in education with a concentration in teaching and learning. I didn't know, again, how I was going to do this. Had no clue. I just knew it was a master's, and that was a big, scary thing, and you had to write a thesis, which was an even bigger, scarier thing at the end of all of this process. And what really convinced me is I met a lady in our DSS office at Disability Student Services at Johnson & Wales, which is where I went to school. Now that I just threw that out. And she told me, basically she sat me down one day and said, you know, you're 20 years old. Why do you not think you can do a master's? You have a bachelor's, you've been working. And I said, because I don't think I'm smart enough. And she said, well, what do you mean? And I said, well, I've always been the talkative one. I've been outgoing. I talk too much. I don't do things right. I can't organize things. My time management is great if it's something that I enjoy. Otherwise, put it out the window. She did the testing, and lo and behold, I don't know if you guys can tell, I have ADD. So we started some strategy building, and I was learning how to actually now be successful in school. Graduated with my master's. I had a 4.2 because I took one honors class. When I graduated, it was the first 4.0 I'd ever gotten in my entire life, and it was in grad school of all places. Lo and behold, stayed, got a job with Things Academy at Mitchell College, which is where I am now. What Things is a program for students who could or are in the same position that I was. Didn't know what college meant, what it was going to entail, and they come in and they can do a year of academic preparation, skill building, strategy building, academic preparation, so to speak, to prepare you for that first day when you walk into class and your instructor says, I'll see you again at the midterm and the final exam, have fun with the term and enjoy your time. Okay, great. How do I now go and do that? Because one of the flips that you guys, how many students are out there, if you don't mind me asking? Just raise your hands, you don't have to actually say. I see a few of you, don't be hiding. Thank you. Those of you that are students, when you get to college, one of the things you have to remember is that 80% of your time now is going to be spent outside of the classroom. 20% will be spent inside of the classroom. That's almost a complete flop from what you guys are used to right now. Only in that 80% of the time you need to figure out who you are, what you want to do with the rest of your life, how you're going to manage that, and how you're going to get there. And that's what we're trying to help you do at Things, is to build this solid foundation. So I'm not saying that you're going to leave the program and know what you want to do for the rest of your life. I'm in my 30s, and I don't know what I want to do with the rest of my life, to be honest with you. I want to help kids, and I want kids to have the chance, or young adults, to have the ability to go on and be successful. And when I took this position at Things, that was my biggest reason, was that I knew the program, its success rates, and I knew that they were really helping students get these skills while earning college credits to go on and be successful. So that's kind of where I am and what Things is, and I think we're coming back around. So I'll stop.
Thank you. Okay, I want to ask Holly a question. Interim program. Define interim program. Is it a structured program? Is it, how does the Center for Interim Programs actually function as an organization?
Okay. When we work with students we sit down with them for a free hour-and-a-half brainstorming session. All I'm working with is a student's general areas of interest. Anyone can come into my office and not have a clue as to what they want to do, but they can circle locations in the world and areas of interest. And then based on that, what I'm doing is just peppering them with all these different options that are out there. It could be anything from something like Dynamy, where they're doing a semester internship program that's independent but hooked in with peers. It could be a cultural study program like the one I did for the second part of my gap year in Greece that was academic but woven into the culture with my peers, lots of structure and support. It could be working on board a tall ship and getting berth and board in exchange for labor. I have a young woman on a boat off the Atlantic coast right now doing this. There's such a variety of options out there, and most students are combining different experiences within that gap year. So it pretty much follows a school calendar. So the summer they're often working, potentially to help pay for the gap year as I did. Fall, off on a program, home for the holidays, off again January on something else. Many students will start out with more of a structured group program in the fall. You don't have to follow the blueprint, but the most structure and support when they start out in the fall, and then they move into more independent placements as they go along. What's interesting about this, and I'm thinking about the students with whom I worked over the years, you know, probably there were many students who would have been given a diagnosis of ADD, ADHD. When we started in the 1980s, I probably would have been given the same diagnosis, quite frankly. So when I was looking back at the numbers of students with whom we worked, it's probably been over 230 or so, where we started keeping track of students and just the labels. So what I find with students who have had more of a struggle in school is that it's particularly good for them to step away from the classroom and not be graded and really get a sense of how they handle themselves in the world. And if, which ideally happens, if they're going towards something they're excited about, you know, all this energy that you can see in our fellow panel member Scott, you know, you can focus that in on something that they're really excited about. They do amazingly well. I mean, just like nobody's business, they go after this. And a lot of it, I think, is because they are choosing what they want to do, ideally. And they have this array of concrete options that provide them with a learning impact.
Thank you very much. I'm going to go to Kathy next. Can you just tell us what kinds of trends you're seeing now in the field? Have things changed over the last few years? I don't know if the economy drives some of these decisions, or what are you seeing in your business?
So the trend, especially at Dynamy, is that we're seeing more and more students are actually coming from the college side that have done a semester or a year of college, realize, I really don't know what I want to do. I don't know what the next step is, and then taking a step back. So if there are high school students in here and you're thinking about a gap year, it's crossing your mind, take it. I've never had a student say, I wish I didn't take that gap year. But I've had so many students from the college side wish they would have done it before going to college to build some of those life skills. And that's one of the key trends that I'm seeing. You know, I'm seeing more and more students, especially at Dynamy, coming in with a diagnosis of ADD or ADHD and just different LDs across the board. And the great thing about internships is you're not going out there with a label. You're going out there saying, I want to do radio, but I'm not so great with, you know, written communication versus, you know, verbal. And you're going out there and really learning how to advocate for yourself for the first time in a new way. That's not just an IEP or you can't do this or you have to do this. But what do you really need as an individual and a student?
Good, thank you so much. Christina, my question for you is, help us understand the process. If you have a child who's a senior now and is really torn, do they apply to college or to some kind of post-secondary education program while they're considering a gap year option? Because I think that's kind of the panic people feel. They don't want to do anything wrong this senior year. So what advice can you give about that?
I would advise that if a student or is coming from the parents are considering a gap year, I do recommend that the student go through the process of applying to college. Because once they're accepted to college, they can defer for a year. Almost all colleges will allow that. Now, I'm working with a couple of students right now, off the top of my head, where one family said to me from the get-go, we think that maybe considering a gap year would be a good idea. The other student is a situation where I brought it up to the parents and said, he's not really excited about applying to colleges. The process is going very slowly. Maybe we should think about this. And I spoke with both students very frankly, but very supportively, and said, listen, we're at this point in the college process. It's been very hard in terms of me getting a hold of you, you returning my phone calls, setting up meetings. How do you feel about this? Do you think you're ready? So by and large, unless the student is totally stonewalling the college process, I would, even if it's kind of like pulling teeth, even if you need to get somebody else objectively involved in that process, I would advise, yes, go through the process of applying to college. Also apply to gap year programs. When you get accepted to colleges, talk with the admissions about deferring because of the gap year. Colleges are very open to this idea these days. As long as they know that you're not going to be sitting on the couch for that coming year, they're fine. Upon entrance into the college, the following year after the gap year, oftentimes the college will have the student write an essay explaining what they did during that year and how it impacted them.
And should they be applying to gap year programs at the same, is the time frame the same for gap year as it is for post-secondary?
Yeah, it is, as far as I know. Would you both agree?
Yeah, I mean, you can finish your college apps in December and then start focusing on gap year after that, so for the following fall.
And I am seeing more and more students apply during that November, December, because as they're doing applications and transcripts and recommendations, they're just thinking, all right, I might as well just do them all at once. But we are seeing students that are applying later too, so it's really up to the individual.
My general timeline is when I work with students to apply to college, I say, get the college applications in by Halloween. Because you know what? Usually an early action deadline could be as early as November 15th. And the student has a better chance of getting in early action. It's not binding. So I like my students to get their applications in by Halloween. Sometimes that's not realistic, but, and then, right, it would free up time for them to work on applications to gap year.
I just wanted to comment on the college application process. For students who are really just completely allergic to the whole process of applying to college, you know, and you look and it looks like you're just going to beat a dead horse on it, it's okay to apply halfway through a gap year. The gap year will only help your chances in terms of college admissions. It's not a guarantee, but the colleges now especially are really appreciating the maturity level, everything you're bringing with you after having done a gap year. And so the other thing you can do is you can show your full senior year and also part of your gap year. You can speak from that fall experience on those college application essays. And usually it's a much more animated voice coming through. You know, somebody's been off teaching in Costa Rica or working on border talkship or doing an internship at a publishing company in New Zealand or whatever it is. They're going to be fired up about that, and it's going to be a different essay than a lot of the essays that admissions people tend to see.
So Pat, I'm curious, the families that you work with tend to, and correct me if I'm wrong, not be a college candidate. Or do you also work with kids who are college?
I very much work with kids who are college candidates.
So with the families you work with locally, what are other resources that you like to tap into?
Okay, well, let me just make the statement that I haven't had any student that I work with so far that has attended a gap year or even applied to a gap year. It's sort of a new notion or a new concept to me. One thing they have done is gone to college preparation type programs over the summer.
So bridge programs?
Yeah, bridge programs or transitional programs, exactly. And they have been helpful, very, very helpful. I guess my concern with the students that I work with the profile of the student that I work with, they're mostly, as I said, on the spectrum. And the notion of high functioning versus Asperger's versus lower functioning students, they all have their issues with respect to behaviors, organizational issues, communication deficits, social deficits. And I wonder out loud, are there gap programs that really understand this, the nature of this particular student?
Great question.
And, you know, how could you tell me, what could you tell me about your programs to address the needs of that particular type of student? Or could you address the needs of that particular type of student?
Somebody on
We can actually both probably respond to that.
Thank you, Holly. So Diamond's been working with students, and nonverbal, as you talked about, to students on the spectrum. But, you know, for us, we're pretty independent, so it would be a very high-functioning student on the spectrum because they're living in apartments on their own. They're getting to their internships. They are managing their time. So there's some level of flexibility. But there are other really amazing programs out there that have additional frameworks. CIP being one.
The CIP, yes. Definitely,
Yeah.
I know that one. And NYIT on
Yeah.
Long Island.
So lots of really great programs. So, you know, students that have learning differences, call up the gap year programs and ask, okay, what does your program look like? Is it the right level of support for me? And in no way should it limit the student, because I've had students that have, you know, ADHD come in and they may not be the right fit. But I've also had students on the spectrum come in that are a great fit for our program. So for us, it's not so much about the diagnosis, but the student.
It's a great point.
Absolutely, it has to be an individualized approach, there's no question about that.
Did you want to add something?
I do, actually, yeah. I've worked with about, and again, this is more recently, given the diagnoses, probably about 7 or 8 students who would be on the Asperger's spectrum. And the parents were very concerned about whether this would be okay for them. What I found is that the students were fine. I mean, Max is a student I worked with in 2009, mild Asperger's, went off and did a research project with scientists helping with research. They were doing excavation of a Roman fort. So he was with adults, there was structure in place, and he loved it, and he was totally fine. He did another program like that in the Amazon for 10 days. So these were short things that he was starting out just to see how he was doing. His mother was going to see how he was handling it. And as he took on more and more, she said, you know what, he could go off and do this month-long intensive filmmaking course, which he did in February of his gap year. So he did 3 different programs, structured programs, and then he did a mission trip in Haiti. Another young man I worked with more recently, he was diagnosed with ADHD, on meds, dyslexia, Asperger's, 22 years old, completely stalled out. And he was interested in the recording arts. And so I said, there's this 5-week program in the States that you can do to learn how to run a recording studio. And his father and his guardian said, oh my God, you know, he absolutely loves this program. He caught fire. And he's completed the advanced course. He enrolled himself in the Tribeca in Chicago. So he's doing this full-blown high-tech school. Sometimes I think people, I mean, I don't mean to discount the need for the structure and the support, but I think we tend to undervalue the power of someone's passion. So if you can light someone up, they can overcome an awful lot because they're so fired up. And that's what's missing in so many of our students. They don't know where their passions are. It's hard to tell a passion from a classroom. I mean, you can sometimes, but it's often easier for students like this to get in, follow up on something, and really see how they handle it.
No, you're absolutely right. It's critical to tap into their interests and their passions. There's no question about it. But I have had experience with students who have been in situations where they were majoring in or taking courses or programs and things that they were very interested in all their lives. And yet because they were missing certain things like executive function deficits and the social piece being so difficult for them, the organizational piece, they really found it and wound up failing out.
Yeah.
They didn't make it in the program.
And let me say that the gap year field is very young still.
Yeah.
So as Kathy was saying, we really want to basically grill programs that you might be considering to see if it would be suitable for a student who has some differences like this.
Yeah, I think it's really important to check the programs. What kind of, do they really understand who your student is, who your child is, what kind of accommodations and supports they're willing to give you, and talk to the program members, people who have attended the program. That's a very good barometer, as well as, of course, the gap counselors.
I would add maybe like 3 or 4 areas in terms of accommodations that Pat just said, and in terms of what Holly said, grilling, really the gap year program. I would say 1 for students with learning disabilities that have been exempt from a foreign language in high school, going to a country where you have to speak a foreign language definitely might not be the best bet. I mean, that would be definitely something to consider. Another piece would be somebody that has time management deficits. So how about if when they have their internship, wherever that may be, where they have to get up at a certain time to show up there? I don't know how many parents are still waking up their child in high school and helping them get out the door, and that's a reality. Yeah, right, exactly.
Please
Pull
stop
back as
doing
much
that.
as you can, right? But that's definitely a consideration. Another thing would be, how about a student who sees a therapist regularly? If you're going outside the country, how about medical insurance? Is that covered outside the country? How about if a student takes medication? Think about that. It doesn't even cross state lines, a medication prescription. So you have to arrange all of that as well. And then the last thing I would say is a student, regardless of what the disability is, but I would say probably more the Asperger's, high-functioning autism. In terms of living with a roommate, if that's part of it, how would that work out? Would that be something that would be best suited for that student? Just some things to think about.
Scott, if I could ask you a question. What was your motivation for wanting to have this conversation? I think you're obviously you talked about your personal experience, but what are you seeing in your travels when you're talking to students and going out talking to parents?
My biggest motivation, I would say, when wanting to do this panel was, again, and I'm going to call you up for a minute. I saw a presentation by Diane at the IECA last year, and I think it was your boss or the founder, if I'm not mistaken. And going kind of back into what they were saying is vetting out different programs and seeing it's still a new concept in America, this gap year. In Britain and in Australia, you do a gap year, it's you go and you drink for a year. And in all honesty, not all of them are that way, but that's what the gap year is overseas. We don't. So when we say we're in our gap years are in the infancy stages, they are here, I would say. Overseas, they've probably been going a little bit more. But really, my inspiration for wanting to do this is, I think, again, a lot of times we talk about the disability, the problem, the reason you are going to have difficulties, the reason why it's going to be an issue for you. And I wanted to be able to have students have the opportunity to say, you know what, I can go out there and find out what I want to do. I don't have to go and get a degree in accounting because that's what my mother and father did. No offense to any accountants out there, I just can't even fathom being an accountant. Or I want to be a doctor because that's what my mom and dad do. Well, what do you want to do? Be a doctor? Why? And not in a rude why, but why? What is the reason? Because my mom and dad are. Okay, well then that's great. Let's talk about what that means. And usually, as soon as you say the MCAS test that they're going to have to take at one point in the boards, it checked out. But I think giving a student, and just knowing from my personal experience, having a year to mature. I don't know how many of you out here have sons, but we're a little bit more immature than young women at this point in our life. And when somebody, I can still remember that guidance counselor who, when I said I was going to Harvard, she said, what do you want to do with the rest of your life? How many of you can honestly sit here and look at me and say that at 18 years old, you knew what you were going to do for the rest of your life? There might be a handful of you, and I commend you on that. Again, I'm 34 years old. I don't know what I want to do the rest of my life because that's a long time. And doing a gap year gives you that realistic opportunity, even if it's 2 weeks in the Amazon, 2 weeks in Colorado, 2 weeks in Mexico City, building a home for a family, learning just what it's like to not have this label on you. And for me, that was the biggest thing. I just didn't want to be labeled. It started to become more about the disability, which in my mind isn't a disability. You all have disabilities because you don't learn like I do. So that was something for me that, and I'm putting it back on you. I don't have a disability in my mind. This is how I learn. And for me, it's hands-on. It's getting out there and doing it. I can't imagine doing the marine science thing. I love boats. Just sit on them and look pretty. I don't want to work, and I especially don't want to sail, and I don't want to clean anything. So that would have been a miserable thing for me to do. But when I went to Johnson & Wales, I liked to cook. That was something I always knew that I wanted to do. I didn't know how that was going to manifest in my life. But it really came down to getting there, having somebody who finally said, you know what, stop hiding behind this label that we've all given you for so many years. Who are you? Sit down, look at yourself, take this assessment. And that can be difficult for students that do have some sort of learning difference. If they're on the spectrum, it may be hard for them to sit and actually say, who am I and what do I do? Because it may not be there. It may be a learned response that they have to learn and program themselves to say or learn. But the reason, again, that I wanted to do this is I just think it was another option for students. And since I've been working at things, I see these students coming in, and the trend that I'm seeing is kind of everything that you guys said. The students who went to college, got there in August for orientation, and never get out of mom and dad's car. Mom and dad, you might as well go to college because they are not going to get out of the car and they're not going to do this because all of a sudden they're there with 30,000 people and, pardon my French, holy crap, what am I going to do? To the kids who've gone the first semester, got through 5 weeks, got the academic probation report card, and then maybe at Christmas time said, you know what, maybe it'd be best if you just don't come back for spring term. Really? I mean, why would we set you up for that kind of failure? If we know at the beginning, and if the student knows, I just think that there was more options out there, and in this day and age, there are so many different types of learners. And again, most of you out here that are probably mom and dads, you were probably told from the time that you were young that you're going to graduate high school, you're going to go to college, you get a job, and that's what you're doing. There are more options for students nowadays, but there are also more challenges that we're facing. And I just think that that's something, and I apologize for my hands if the video camera can't see me, I'm also Sicilian, so that plays a part of it. I just felt that there was this need, and I've been seeing it. It's something that if you even go onto Google and type in gap year, what comes up now versus 2 years ago probably is 200% more. So there's just these options that I think in the long run, again, looking at it from the college aspect, the students that I have that are coming into things, they're earning credits, so they're not taking a 13th year of high school, which is usually the biggest pushback I get. I do not want to be a 13th year in high school. I want to graduate with my friends. Okay, well, let's get that piece out of your mind, because you know what? Your friends may be in a state school, they may be there for 6 years just because of the way that the classes are set up or the way that the program is run. And let's start thinking about, where do you need some skill building? Where do you need time management? Do you need to have somebody still get you up out of bed and try and wean you off of that? Because at things, the first couple of weeks, I gotta tell you, Tammy, the director of the program, will run upstairs, and if you don't come downstairs the first day, okay, we talk about it, but after that, no, I'm not playing this game, let's go. Come downstairs, you've got class, or let's go home, because you're wasting your parents' money. And when you kind of put that onus on us, it's like, oh, I mean, if you told me I was wasting my parents' money when I was in college, I would have been like, oh, I guess, if you want to say it that way, but I'm just calling it exploring. So that was what the passion was behind it, at least wanting to do this, was just so that for you, the students that are out there, you guys know that it's not just graduate from high school, either go to a community college or go to a college or a university. You have options that are going to build skills in your life, not just in the classroom, but spending a year overseas, spending a year in a different state out of New England will change your mind on everything. It will change the way you think about things, the way you look at things. Having to live on your own the first time you're in that apartment by yourself and the roof creaks, because let's face it, most of us aren't living in a $1,900, $2,000 apartment right out of high school. So we're living in pretty meager existence as we get out. It's just neat to see the spark in somebody when you can go up to them and say, what do you want to do? And they found that program, and mom and dad call me and say, you know what? They're happy and they're learning, and I haven't had to do a darn thing other than send the bill or the check. But for once, they're actually learning something, and I just think that that's just this great opportunity for students.